Welcome back, guys, and today we're going to start a new series of our lessons for 21st century literature in the Philippines and of the world. So, our first topic for today is context and text meaning. So, let's start. So, for our lesson for today, we start with context and text meaning. So our topic will focus on context and text meaning. We're going to explain what does context means. So first question, what are the different genres of literature we have? You may post this video and write your answer in the comment section down below. Which among these genres do you read more? Why? Again, you may post this video and write your answer in the comment section down below. So let's start with the meaning of context. Context is defined as the circumstances that form the setting of events, statements, or ideas, and in the way of which it can be fully understood and assessed. So context is basically looking at what does the meaning of the event happening on the text, or what does this line mean, or let's say this line, this um, let's say a phrase from a certain poem. What is the idea of that certain phrase? So that is context. So the first context that we need to take into consideration is the writer's context. So knowing about the writer's life, values, assumptions, gender, race, sexual orientation, and the political and economic issues related to the author. So basically, you need to understand the author, her ideals, his or her life. Okay, you need to understand the individual who wrote that particular piece of literature. Okay, because there are certain ideas that you cannot understand unless you know the person who is writing it. And then, reader's context. Again, this one is based on you as the reader. Okay, what is your experience, your reading experience, your values, your assumptions, your political and economical issues that you experience. Okay, so it might be different than the writer's context, your experiences. Okay, that's why we have different interpretation of literatures around us, because we have different point of views. Text context is about its publishing history. It is a part of larger texts such as newspapers, history, events, and translated in it. So this time around, we're looking at the literature itself. Okay, is it from a newspaper? Is it talking about history? Is it talking about events around us? And then we have historical context. Okay, text historical context is connected with its social context because underlying conventions are historically specific. So historical context is important to note, especially when a text was written in a distant past and huge amount of changes have occurred ever since. So here, if we're reading literatures that are made, let's say in the 80s, 70s, we need to understand what is happening during that time. We need to study the time. Okay, we need to study the culture of that time. Okay, because we cannot understand why they are like this if we are just if we are putting it in our own perspective of this time. Let's say in the 80s, what is the culture in the 80s? Then we try to understand it, but we have different perception because we are connecting it to what is happening in our recent time. Okay, there are changes that is happening. There are changes that are happening through the progress of the period. So there would be difference between what is socially acceptable during those times and during our time. So, cultural context. Culture refers to particular way of life involving religion, race, and nationality, as well as things like food, dress code, and manners. Moreover, it relates to art, music, writing, and literature. Cultural context, also linked with social and historical context, is paramount to note if the text is trying to make a commentary on an aspect of a certain culture. So here, if you're going to read, let's say if you're a Filipino, you're going to read American literature, you need to understand the culture in America first. Okay? Or if you're reading an African literature, you need to understand the culture in Africa first. Because their way of living is different from ours. Okay? The dress code is different. The music is different. So you need to understand the culture first. Then relate it to yours. To understand the meaning of the literature. Then social context. This refers to the way in which the society impacts on the text meaning. There are two aspects to social context. One, the kind of society in which the character lived, and two, the one in which the author's text was produced. Okay, so we need to look at two things here. Okay, first, what society does the author created for the character? Okay, so you understand first what is the social norm of the location of the character based on the literature. Okay. The second now is the author. I guess on the second part, you will already understand this one because you look at the author's context in the first place. So there are two things you need to consider. Again, number one, the society of the author. Number two is the society of the character. So for our exercise or for your activity, you need to read the poem Pag-ibig sa Tinubuang Lupa by Andres Bonifacio and write a personal understanding of the poem in relation to our current situation in our country. So post this for my students, post this one in our Facebook page. So next topic is creative representation of a literary text. So thank you for listening and we'll see you again next time.